What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Smokin' Weed and Talkin' MMA podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at CryptoCrewNecks.com, where you can get the latest original cryptocurrency designs on t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Now, you might be sitting there wondering to yourself, Jared, what does cryptocurrency have to do with MMA? Well, some interesting things actually Paul and I were just talking about before the show. Dash Cryptocurrency is sponsoring Bellator welterweight champion Rory McDonald. Actually paid him out around $300,000 in sponsorship money for his last show. And Michael Chandler also just picked up a cryptocurrency endorsement as well. So Dash is also making inroads into the marijuana scene, looking to become a payment processor at dispensaries here in Vegas and across the country. So we thought it was kind of fitting that our friends over at CryptoCrewNecks.com decided to sponsor our show. We thought it'd be a good fit. So when you got a second, bounce over to their website, give them a shout out, see what you like over there.
Oh, yeah.
On today's episode, Paul, we're going to be starting it off smoking with some Chem-Dawg here. Paul picked this up over from our friends at Zen Leaf Dispensary.
Yep.
Chem-Dawg I like a lot. It's an original, old school herb. It's a hybrid cross. It's a sativa and an indica cross. No one knows the exact roots, but this is the basis for a lot of fine herbs, especially in the diesel line.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, what did you think of those fights last night? Speaking of Darren Till versus Stephen Thompson.
Man, it was cool. It was a great, like, I don't know, it was a great
technical fight.
Technical fight.
Right.
It wasn't a great one to watch, but if you're like really into striking and really into like very strategic like fighting, that was the fight for you.
Yeah, the fight's getting a little bit of controversy here the day after due to the scoring and the controversial nature of some of those scores put Till the winner. I mean, we were talking during the fight. Both of us thought that Till won in the immediate aftermath.
He definitely won, but I could definitely see where someone could make an argument where Thompson won as well.
I could see an argument for Thompson winning. Honestly, I could see an argument for a draw. I think you could go rounds 1 and 5 to Till. I think you could give 2 and 3 to Thompson, and then you could score round 4 as a draw.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're in a hometown, though, and you get that knockdown late in the 5th, I think that changes, it changes the judge's mind because, I mean, it shouldn't, but in the era we live in the judge, and just the fact of some judges not even understanding what they're watching when they see a big moment in a fight that's that close.
And that crowd.
Yeah, and that crowd getting behind that guy. It's really hard to give it to the other guy when you got the whole crowd behind him. It's a big moment in the fight, and really you don't have much other substance to judge, you know?
This is true. They're just humans. You know, I'm not mad at the decision today. I think it's best for the welterweight division. I think most people agree that it's good to get some fresh blood. I love Stephen Thompson. I don't want to see him fight Woodley again.
It's just tough because if he wins that fight, how do you really give him Woodley again, knowing how boring it is to watch them fight? Just because there's such a weird mismatch.
Especially since so many people are going to think that this fight yesterday was boring. And let's be honest, it was kind of boring. I mean, I'm into striking. I'm a former boxer, of course. I love striking. I was fascinated by that aspect. But we're talking about a fight by elite strikers that had less than 10 significant strikes per round landed by each guy. So you can see where some people's argument comes in that it's boring. I get it.
Yeah, but here's what you got to understand is, yeah, from a casual perspective that where you don't know the guys, yes, that fight was boring. But people who know and watch these two fight that are on the edge of their seat the whole fight because they know each guy only really needs to land one clean blow and it's good night. So yeah, once you get to the middle of the fight and you're not seeing as much, it gets a little boring. But at the same time, knowing and understanding who's in that octagon is really big when you watch a fight. Because when you know who's standing in there and you know what's going on, you understand, hey, yeah, that was kind of boring, but at the end of the day, those are two of the best strikers in the world. And all they really have to do is connect twice, and then it's good night. Really,
Absolutely.
once Till lands a solid left hand, it puts him down. That's what happened. It just took Till the 5th round to happen.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the question then, what's next for Darren Till? We had him say Usman, I thought, in the after fight interviews, which I find to be interesting. We've got Neil Magny out there calling out Usman as well. I think what complicates matters here, Paul, is this fucking interim title bout between RDA and Covington. While I like that match, I don't like the interim title attached to it because that means they've got the next title shot here, right?
I mean, it's tough because this division's so locked up in the middle. Everyone's so young, and then at the same time, it's very strange in this division right now because you have a lot of guys who are at the beginning of their careers and a lot of guys who are on their way out. You got your Damian Maia, your RDA, and your Woodley, who are more seasoned fighters and who really... Not saying Woodley's going to retire anytime soon. Just saying he's on...
youngin', though.
He's not as young as a guy like Covington, Darren Till,
Right, Darren Till's
Usman. 25, which is...
Jesus.
It's crazy to see some guy fight at that level at that age. But what I'm saying is this division kind of has like two parts to it. You got your Maia, RDA, Woodley, and then in that like same breath you have Till, Colby Covington, Usman, Ponzinibbio, Mike Perry, and then also then you have guys who like Neil Magny who have been there, but they're still kind of a guy who's looked at as a younger person when he's really not. He's not a young guy. He's got to be at least 27, 28 now.
Who's that?
Magny.
Magny, I believe he's 30.
He might, yeah. It's weird because at the same time, when you watch him fight, he fights like such a young fighter still.
He does, absolutely. He's making some noise. Who do you think gets the next title shot? I mean, this is the new UFC. This is WME.
Obviously,
Endeavor
whoever
owned.
wins the Covington RDA obviously is got the
Do
next.
you think they'll go with that?
They have to?
Unfortunately, I agree.
Unless,
they have to.
barring injury, they have to.
So that opens up Till for someone like Usman.
I just don't think that's a great matchup for him at this point in his career. I think
gonna
that's
get another
more of a
snoozer?
title fight later on because when you've got Usman, you just watched him pretty much do the same thing to everyone he's ever fought, including Emil Meek. I feel like that would be a very similar matchup to what's going to happen if him and Till fight.
So you mean he's going to be getting beat up on the feet and then take him down?
And then just take him
There's gonna
down,
be
and
nothing
then...
much done after
Well, he
that
doesn't really do
by his
much on the
opponent.
ground is the problem.
Right, he's not much of a ground and pounder. He's
Yeah,
more
he
of
just
a
kind of control and just get like hard like short strikes. He does a lot of like elbow strikes and like shoulder strikes and weird shit like that where it puts like pressure on you and tires you out, but it doesn't necessarily damage you. Kind of similar to what John Fitch did to Paul Daly, where it's just strange to watch sometimes, and it's very like tough to where if you do make this Till Usman fight, you can't really make it a main event of any kind of card because now you got Usman coming off two different fights where he was the main event and the numbers weren't there. Right. So Till, on the other hand, the numbers are there, and his last fight was kind of boring. So then I feel like if you have a Till Usman and it's a boring fight, but let's say Till just squeaks out the win like he did against Thompson, then you got a guy who had a bunch of steam around him from being an exciting fighter. Now you put him in two boring fights in a row and two on a main event, and two of them that one did good numbers, but then it kind of left a bad taste in people's mouth, to then him having another slow fight where it would leave fans with another bad taste in their mouth. How do you build that guy up as far as us talking a talent agency running the UFC right now? They're giving guys title shots who are really making the most noise right now. I know there's rankings, but at the end of the day, the rankings don't matter. The noise matters, And so really, if you got a guy until who was making real big noise when he knocked out Cowboy, but then has two fights in a row that were boring and no one really cared to watch, but he beat guys who were at the top. But then let's say a guy like Colby and RDA, if that shit happens and one of them just it's a close fight. One of them loses, and then one of them loses to Woodley. Most likely, the guy who lost that interim title fight would get the title shot over Tiller Usman if they have another boring fight.
That could definitely happen.
You know, very similar to what happened with Gustafsson. Remember, like, there was pretty much a number one contender in the light heavyweight division, but everyone wanted to watch Gustafsson fight because he had just fought Jones and lost, and then Jones gets stripped and everything gets taken away, and everyone was like, hey, man, after he beats Johnson, everyone's like, well, I guess you got to fight Gustafsson. Even though he lost his last fight, then you still got to fight him. Because at the end of the day, it's still, you know what I mean?
That's a scenario I'd rather avoid, but it looks like we're cruising for that.
Well,
depending on how this interim...
If Till can't crack the code is what I'm saying. Because there's a great chance that if him and Usman fight, that he could crack the code and he can beat him. And... You know, because no one's really seen what happens when they go to the ground as far as Till, because I don't know, he's just from like looking at his body style, he has a wrestler's body. He's got like
he's big and powerful.
He's got thick legs, he's got big shoulders, you know, so I wonder how he is just in the catch. Knowing that he lived in Brazil for 3 years, I'd imagine he had to get some kind of jiu-jitsu background as far as like training with the high level guys. So I don't know, like, usually guys who are built like that, who can wrestle, are great on the catch as far as people shooting on them. So, I mean, obviously, Usman's a really high-level wrestler, but MMA wrestling's different, honestly. It's weird. And so maybe just based on his size and, like, obviously me having some kind of faith in his wrestling, it may be a different fight than people think it could be. And maybe we're all wrong, and that's the fight that really gives one of those two guys, puts on a great performance and gets him that title shot, you know?
Interesting to see how that plays out. Now, speaking of interesting fights, let's bounce around a little bit over. We've got something brewing here lately that's making some noise that I want to fucking have a little conversation about, which is Oscar De La Hoya and his Chuck versus Tito 3, where now we've got Chuck Liddell. I mean, no bout agreement is signed, but everybody's acting like this is going to happen through De La Hoya's new supposed MMA promotion.
Yeah, what? Well, then, not really, though, because then he tried to get it picked up by Bellator and co-promote it first. And Bellator's like, no, we don't really want to do that. And then, now they went to De La Hoya, you know?
Now, Chuck is approximately 113 years old.
I thought he was 115.
Tito's clocking right under him at 92.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, seriously, I believe Chuck's 49 years old. I mean, he's pushing 50. But I get why he wants to do it.
Chuck's
he lost that lifetime job.
1. Tito's is 2.
Right. If people want to say, why did Chuck do this? I think it's pretty obvious. He was promised a lifetime job. And then the UFC sold themselves over to WME, and he lost that lifetime job.
Get the fuck out of here, you fucking... Well, he didn't really do anything, is the thing.
No, it was a token.
It was more of like a, here, bro, you're paid for life.
Right. It was a thank you from Dana White to a fighter that helped make the UFC. Who else was it, too?
Wasn't it Matt Hughes, Forrest Griffin?
Matt, Forrest, Tito.
Was Tito on there?
No, not Tito.
Chuck.
Chuck, yeah. That was Chuck.
Is Dan on there, too?
No.
I thought he works for the UFC now.
If he is, since the sale.
Oh, okay.
And they're not giving out those kind of cushy fucking jobs anymore. I mean, they've kept Forrest on in some kind of role.
Well, Forrest runs the Performance Center now.
Right. He lucked out with that.
Well, he's a good trainer. Like, I know a couple guys who train with him that are like, that he really helps them out.
We should take a trip up there one of these days.
Yeah.
Well, but are you for this fight? Are you against this fight? Do you want to see this? Do you fucking pay money for this on a pay-per-view, Paul? I think it's
necessary. Why? Like, what does it do? It puts Chuck 2-1 against Tito. If Tito wins, like, what does that really do for you, bro? It's not really vengeful, because then he still holds that other fight up over your head and like, oh, really? Yeah, Chuck Tito 3. Yeah, great, fool. Now I'm 2-1 against you. Like, who the fuck cares?
It gives him a paycheck. I think that's the only
thing. Well, yeah, I think obviously that I'm speaking just legacy-wise.
Legacy-wise, it's an embarrassment.
In the idea of the fight, if they were active fighters, you know.
They're not like Dan Severn. Like, Dan Severn kept fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, he fell off the map, And unless you're a hardcore like us, you didn't hear about the guy. But he
Yeah.
kept on fighting this whole time. These guys have been sitting, Tito, yeah, okay, he's fighting. But Chuck has been sitting on his ass.
Yeah, but Tito's
shit.
already retired. He's already retired for a year before this fight came up.
We already know what's going to happen. If Chuck wins, there's going to be the great injury that Tito didn't tell anybody about, but he actually broke his neck in 15 places and his back in 4, but still made it to the fight.
He's blind in all 4 eyes.
I don't want to see this. I'll come right out. I want these guys to get a paycheck, mainly because I don't want to see Chuck Liddell wind up like some of these other guys and have to sit there and get a GoFundMe campaign up to pay for some surgery he needs or some shit. So I want the guy to get a paycheck.
Yeah, it's definitely...
But
no one wants to see anybody who used to be their hero fail. You know what I mean? No one wants to see... It's like it's a sad reality that fighters and other people in sports deal with is what to do after it ends. And a lot of guys end up bankrupt, and a lot of guys end up searching for something that's no longer there. And this is kind of something, I mean, no offense to those guys, because, those are the guys I used to watch when I was a kid. They used to be my favorite fighters, but it's just not the right time. It's over,
No, his skill set is not competent with today's. But I mean, he's fighting Tito. No. Tito's not competent with today's.
Well, yeah, no. I'm not saying that it's a dumb fight as far as like skill wise. I'm just saying I don't want to see either one of these guys get knocked out again.
No, me neither.
Not even. I don't. This goes into the question of what's more worth it, the money, or your health, because a lot of guys face that reality like today, and not even only in fighting, like there's different guys across all sports.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Chris Bosh has had blood clots in his leg since he was like 31, and he keeps trying to like come back to the NBA and play, and it's like that same thing. What's more important, your health or your money / fame, glory,
Right, and I get it, and they're the ones that have every right to make these decisions, but just like we have every right to be like, nah, I'm not going to pay for that pay-per-view.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, and, it's kind of challenging someone, I don't know, it's almost like their manhood at the end of the day. They're like, I can still do this,
Fuck yeah.
I can still fuck this guy up. I haven't lost a step,
Dude, I know what it's like. I mean... The excitement that you get from stepping into a fucking ring or a cage to fight another human being in front of a crowd.
There's nothing like raw competition at the end of the day. Yeah. But it's not competition right now, though. It's not for that.
No, I don't want to see old men fight.
It's fucking Rocky. It's Rocky 7.
Right.
That's what we're watching in real life. Is Rocky 5. Like the Rocky movies are Chuck and Tito right now. When you're just like, oh, the new kid on the block is good, or like, oh, my old opponent who's 50 now also wants it again, like it's stupid at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't make any sense for either guy, because no one wants to see that guy hurt. No one wants to see the people they used to look up to get beat up at 50, like to see them all broken down and old, and not old, but you know what I mean, like Chuck's at a place, I feel like, right now where he's kind of running out of options financially. And I don't know his financial status, so this is not me judging him, but just from what it looks like from the outside looking in, it seems like he needs this,
Well, yeah, and I mean, we can all logically conclude that from the fact that he had a cushy job.
Well, and now he's like calling out John Jones and shit like that. Like, come on, brother.
He might have made a little bit of money as champ back then, but the UFC wasn't paying money. It wasn't like these guys like getting paid $500,000 for fights today. Fuck no. I mean, that's still not enough, but back then it was shit. So I doubt he has much money saved up. I mean, otherwise, why'd he get the cush job with the UFC?
True. True. It's to pay them what they meant to pay them when they were
Exactly. It's a thank you. Sorry.
It's like that same like thing, like appreciating someone while they're there rather than comparing them to people once they're gone.
Right. So how about this De La Hoya as a promoter thing? Is this fucking serious, Paul? Do you think he's trying to make a real run, or is he still just sticking his finger in the eye? I feel like it's a cash grab.
It's a cash grab for De La Hoya.
He seems to me like he's still butthurt about Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. He talked so much shit about it.
He's super pissed about it too now that Canelo Triple G 2 is falling through. You know, it's like,
right.
Like, it's a cash grab at the end of the day for him. He looks at it as two guys that he doesn't have to ever promote ever again after this fight. And he can probably make a solid chunk of cash off this because everybody and their mother knows who Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz is, you know.
And his name still carries some juice in the combat sports world.
It does, but it doesn't. He's a legend.
With the quote-unquote casuals.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think any boxing fans are going to suddenly buy the pay-per-view because De La Hoya's promoting it. But I mean, when people hear this shit on the news, they'll be like,
45-year-old dudes who just like kicking it at the house, like, oh, dude, remember when we watched Chuck and Tito and we were 20? Let's watch it again, you know? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's a nostalgia fight. You know, it's a Bellator main event. Is like sometimes.
Dude, it's nostalgia just with De La Hoya talking about promoting it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not for him being in MMA, but I'm
like,
kind
of like, it's not going to turn anything out of it. Like, it's not going to be Oscar De La Hoya's MMA fight night. You know, it's going to be one fucking fight, and who's going to be on the rest of the card is a real question.
Well,
is it going to be boxing on there?
Who knows?
Is it going to be a crossover event that just the main event is a Chuck and Tito just for De La Hoya to get that crossover bit of cash like Conor and Floyd did? You know, because it's smart at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, it's smart. It's a smart cash grab. But at the end of it's not going to be and turn into a promotion outside of this fight.
Yeah, maybe it's a cash grab because you can't turn it into promotion. Bellator's stinking in the ratings. People are talking there's a possibility they might go away. You think we need another quote-unquote high-level MMA promotion?
Yeah,
No, I don't think so either. But I'm a little biased. I mean, I'm a little anti-De La Hoya since back in the day.
Well, you know what I wish? I wish there'd be like legitimate, like B-League UFC. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the UFC would have their own separate promotion where it just fed into the UFC. And I feel like that would do a lot better than, like, Bellator, World Series, or whatever it's called now,
like
PFL.
UFC minors?
Yeah, like it feels like UFC for, like, lower level guys.
Would you throw the old guys in there, too, then?
Maybe.
I mean, they already
what
get
would
that
be
anyways.
so bad
That's
about
how they
that?
wind up going out anyways. Is taken
Why
out
would it
by
be
a
so
young
bad
line.
about? Yeah, exactly. What would be so bad about that? Because when they're going overseas and shit like that, they're still having their like Roy Jones Jr. getting knocked out by like a random ass like Chinese dudes. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's nothing wrong with having those older guys because eventually those older guys are at that ranking in the world that those younger guys are anyways. You know. Like, if you really think about how things are ran, like, that is like, no commission would turn that fight down, you know, just because some guy's a big name. At the end of the day, it's skill versus skill. And if your skills have diminished, those younger guys are going to eat you alive.
Especially here in Vegas, they'll approve it.
Yeah.
Approve it at some lower level Indian casino somewhere, too.
Yep.
Without a doubt. I don't know.
Honestly, anywhere, there's really nothing wrong with a lower level, like, fighting agency, even if they send their guys who, you know, or think about it this way. Think about a guy, say Bellator still exists. Say a guy from Bellator like Will Brooks comes in, has a tough time, has a couple tough matchups. He goes 1-3 in the UFC, something like that.
Yep.
You send him back down. He builds his record back up. You bring him back. People already know his name just from seeing him randomly in other cards, and then you don't send him away and wait for him to get big in China or get big in you know, Russia or Brazil or something like that. Or, you know, it's smart marketing that, once again, we go back to why aren't they able to just do this kind of thing, you know?
Well, what about this, Paul? We've already right now got things like Legacy and
but
Cage
those aren't
Warriors,
direct.
but they're on UFC Fight Pass. What if the UFC offered to do more serious promotion and become like associated with the UFC? So instead of having to build a whole new thing, they just kind of open their doors and say, hey...
Oh, 100%. That makes sense.
Hey, we'll take your guys and we'll make this kind of
Force.
like an official thing.
Yeah.
We'll put it out publicly that you guys are kind of like associated with us.
Yeah, that would be smart.
And we'll bump you our fucking fighters on the way
100%.
out the door too.
Yep.
So you don't have to compete with Bellator maybe so much.
Yeah, but are those amateur promotions? Like, is there amateurs that fight in Legacy?
Not that I'm aware of. No, not like Tough Enough here local.
Well, no, I mean because like some promotions do like half the card amateurs and half the card professionals.
Not to my knowledge on those two because they're pretty big. I mean, especially Cage Warriors is pretty.
Well,
in
yeah,
its
that
area.
Cage Warriors is what I was wondering because I know it's overseas and a lot of times.
I haven't watched Cage Warriors since Conor days. I was into Conor back when he was over there. But
me either.
I haven't been watching him lately.
But yeah,
that'd be interesting to find out.
It's very simple, like marketing that you'd think a talent agency could understand and put in place, but they're dropping the ball, man.
Well, they could do something kind of like. I mean, I'm not a super big baseball fan, but I know that the minor league teams are their own entities, but they're associated with.
Yeah, but also minor league teams are a big thing too when you're talking about like smaller cities and stuff like that. So why don't you just every person? You know how they. I mean, no offense to anywhere else in the United States, but sometimes the UFC has events in these smaller towns that aren't getting the numbers. Why don't you send those different, those like you could, like you were saying, trickle down some of the older fighters. Those bigger names would do great in a small promotion in a smaller town. Everyone wants to go see Bigfoot Silva fight someone in, I mean, like smaller South Dakota, Kansas, like, Oklahoma, stuff like that, where there's these smaller towns that still have a lot of great fight fans, but at the end of the day, they're not going to bring the numbers that a Vegas or Atlantic City or New York, Boston are going to get you as the UFC, and then you sit there and you wonder, why aren't we getting these big numbers? It's...
do the small shows, you got smaller payrolls.
It's a small show,
And you got...
Similar to what the WWE does. The WWE goes and they do their show 365 days a year, but guess what? There's only 2 shows that make TV every week,
Right, exactly.
Like, not everything has to be a pay-per-view. Not everything has to be on Fox. Not everything has to be on, well, now, obviously, ESPN.
It's ESPN.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just stupid, man. It's stuff that you think they could handle as an agency, and they just don't, dude. It's weird.
It is weird. Maybe that'll change with this ESPN deal. Let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, that's the other big news coming out of this week.
Yep.
Is we've got a grand total of, I believe, 30 events broadcast on ESPN. It's roughly 13 on the ESPN Plus, the remainder on TV. Plus ancillary
I think it's going to be really big for them.
Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series. Some talk of Tough. Maybe,
possibly, yep.
Maybe ending, maybe continuing on.
Yeah.
And
I could see it being like an ESPN Plus kind of show.
Well, this is huge. I mean, not only was it big money, but Jesus Christ, ESPN's the leader in sports. It's 100%. The show. It's the channel that's on every bar. FS1 was not that.
No.
FS1, it was you got to ask to get that channel put on in the bar.
And you know what? It changes things because fighting's always been looked at as this kind of like taboo kind of thing.
Right.
Now it's like it mainstreams.
The Fox like cracked it open as legitimate
for sure.
sport. Like,
Don't get me
we're
wrong.
legitimate.
The
Here
UFC
we are.
has made great steps to making it a household name, but now that you're on ESPN, I think it does change a lot of things because boxing's never been like that. Boxing's never been something that you go to like honestly, dude. PF Chang's a perfect example. Like, they wouldn't let us watch it because they said it wasn't a family sport.
Right, it's ridiculous. But now they're.
But we can go watch football where they go and they smash their heads into each other, but you can't watch somebody punch someone else.
Right.
Like, I literally was told that before at work that we could not watch it because it was not a family sport.
It's crazy.
Remember, we had to watch the T.J. Dillashaw Dominic Cruz fight on my phone because they wouldn't turn it on the TV.
Absolutely.
So I think that changes things for UFC because now they're on a platform that no one really deems as like, like, oh, don't watch that. Ooh, that's too violent.
And not only are they going to be on that platform, but they're going to be broadcast exclusively there. So they're going to be ESPN's baby, so they're going to get that extra bit of promotion.
Of course, and
just a traditional
I heard
sport.
That just like how like there's a Mike and Mike show and stuff like that. Yeah. I heard that Ariel Helwani and Chael Sonnen are going to do a show very similar to that.
Oh yeah, I could see that. My boy Ariel getting over there.
Right.
He's about to blow
I wonder
up
what
too.
that does with Gilbert Melendez though, because Gilbert Melendez is also hired by ESPN, and he had done a lot of their post-fight things, like when Holm KO'd Ronda Rousey. Him and Chael were on that, and so I wonder if Gilbert is no longer with them, or Ariel is just taking his spot, and he's going to be on other shows.
It's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out, but
Especially with the Fox analysts as well.
yeah,
Are those
Fox
guys
shows are
going
all
to start
gone.
working for ESPN,
No,
or
I
are they
seriously
going to
doubt it.
stay with Fox? And is Fox still going to have Fox, like UFC? Not obviously not sponsored by the UFC, but still Fox.
For like UFC centered
MMA
programming,
shows.
like an analyst show.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be starving for content over at FS1. I presume they're going to be able to continue broadcasting the old shows that they had rights to, but UFC was a large chunk of their programming on FS1 and FS2. They did a lot of repeats. They had the UFC Unleashed.
Yep.
They had UFC Tonight programming, which all those shows are gone. I mean,
Yeah.
we're about to see a big change
as
here.
of January.
As of January.
2019.
Yeah, so it's going to be a minute. They're going to wind down. We can also probably count on any shows that haven't been announced yet to be kind of shitty. You're not going to see the UFC rolling out their top names now at the ass end of this contract. They're going to save them for these first shows on the new platform.
Yeah, so I wonder if like a guy like a DC or Michael Bisping or Dominic Cruz, if they end up signing a deal with ESPN, because I'd imagine their Fox contracts cease to exist.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
It's real weird.
I don't like all these fighters as analysts. It's too many. But I get why they're needed because there's not enough sports journalists that know enough shit to talk about it.
I disagree because of like we were talking about before the podcast, where the NBA and the NFL, they have those like shows and pregame, postgame, halftime, or stuff like that shows where it's a panel of all former players, or in this case, former fighters, when they analyze what's going on. Obviously, that's going to change. I think those kind of shows will change the casual market. You know what I mean? Because now in football, you go at halftime, you see Terry Bradshaw and Michael Irvin and people like that, Shannon Sharp, telling you about what's going on in the game. Now you're going to have a guy like Chael Sonnen, a guy like possibly Gilbert Melendez, DC, people like that, going and, oh, hey guys, we saw great striking, great effective wrestling, great left hand, all these different like mannerisms of MMA that go to a casual audience now, and it's going to uplift people's knowledge of what's going on in the cage.
That's a solid point. I think I'm just letting my distaste from last night's broadcast and my overall dislike of DC as a commentator. I don't like seeing Michael Chiesa last night. That was just not for me.
Yeah,
and I don't like DC as a commentator either, and that kind of colors my viewpoint on that shit.
Well, it doesn't have to be them necessarily.
But you're right, though. Ultimately, you're correct.
Like, they could do similar to what the NBA does. It's called the Players Only Club, and it's all former players that just show up, and they all just like, there's no commentators, there's no play-by-play guy. It's all just like color commentary, and it's like, you get like Chris Mullen, like Kevin Garnett, like big names like that are former players that are already on those like color commentary anyways, and then they all just like kind of just bounce off each other on shows. And I feel like they could easily do that with fighters, because a lot of fighters have very like distinct personalities.
Yeah, that's good. That's true. Dude, I'd just be happy if they take DC off the pay-per-view. They could just leave it with. I like this lineup they had.
I just don't
last
see
time.
them doing that, because that's DC's out. You know what I mean?
They had Jimmy Smith, Joe Rogan, and John Anik. That was a solid team. A lot of people said Rogan and Smith wouldn't work together. There's always two color guys. Dude, that was a solid broadcast team.
Definitely.
I really dug that. But we'll see what happens. So what's next after that, dude? We got Romero Whittaker coming up. We got UFC 225 coming up. We got some exciting news in Vegas. Let's talk about this for a second, man. Let's come back to those other two. Let's talk about Nick Diaz is here in town
that's
the
rough,
past
man.
few days. Right here in our hometown of Las Vegas.
See,
he had some unfortunate incidents occur.
This is sad, because this is going to spark kind of almost like, I don't know, this kind of happened a couple years, and This happened a couple years ago. Ray Rice, when it was
Ray
like
Rice.
huge, it was a real big speaking topic, and then you had the same guy who's going to be on Dana White looking for a fight in a couple weeks, Greg Hardy. This happened. Him and Ray Rice happened very like similar timelines.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're looking at a guy who didn't get his second chance in the NFL because of the person.
Greg
he was.
Hardy.
Yeah,
Right.
and Greg Hardy, and now you look at Nick Diaz and what has gone on with him. You have to. The UFC is going to end up having to have some kind of repercussion for what's going on. Similar to when Travis Brown had his thing and they suspended him for like 6 months.
Well, in case our listeners here aren't aware, Nick Diaz was arrested here in Vegas over the weekend on several charges, including one felony, all domestic abuse charges, including a felony choking charge against a female. And he was held for, it was at least 24 hours down at the jail here in Las Vegas, then released on bond. He didn't make any statements when he got out. We don't know what's going on his side of the story, but from what we can gather based on the charges, he choked a female out. His friend did release a statement saying that the girl was crazy and she was a stalker. And, you know...
And that could be the case, but at the end of the day, he's in the court of public opinion at this point.
Dude, Nick and Nate Diaz have been some of my favorite fighters.
But they make some terrible decisions, life decisions, man.
But there is, if Nick Diaz really choked a woman out, I mean, if that's legit, I don't fucking care if she was attacking him. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Unless she was armed with a knife or a gun.
Yeah. Unless, like, if he meant, like, stalker, like she was trying to kill him, I understand if he did that to incapacitate her. But if he just beat up a girl
who was simply attacking him physically,
I can never support him ever again.
He's a fucking professional fighter. Yeah. There's no excuse. Some man who's not a professional fighter might try and use that excuse. Well, she hit me, so I was just defending myself.
Just like Floyd Mayweather. I can never support anything Floyd Mayweather's ever done just based off what happened when he beat his wife.
No, you can't. You're a trained fighter. I don't buy that excuse when you're just your everyday citizen who doesn't know how to fight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but fuck that.
Can't condone that.
You can't choke a woman out if she's attacking you. I'm sorry, you fucking take it, bro.
Yeah.
You get in a cage and have grown-ass men beating on you. You can't take a woman beating on you until the situation gets resolved. You don't fucking choke somebody out.
And that goes back to what happened with Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy, it was super graphic. He should have gone to jail for it, but ended up something happening.
Well, what happened with that? If in case our listeners don't know, you tell them what happened with Greg Hardy. I don't know all the details on that.
He beat up his before fiance so bad that she, like, honestly, people, it's extremely gruesome, but you could honestly Google what happened.
Was this alleged or did he take charges?
No, he took charges, but they were dropped based off of out of court settlement. So, you know,
in other words, he paid her off.
Yeah. So the charges were dropped, and
but he got booted out of the NFL for this, right? Or
kind of, sort of, like
nobody picked him up.
This is what happened. So his happened just before what happened with Ray Rice, and so he appealed with the NFL before his case happened. It was just dropped. So he dropped from a 10. He had a 12-game suspension. It dropped to a 2-game suspension. Then the Ray Rice thing happens. Ray Rice, pretty much blackballed for the rest of his life in the NFL. So then that happens. So then that brings up the question of what happened with Greg Hardy. So then the pictures are released, and then this goes back to Roger Goodell being such a shitty commissioner. He just goes back on everything he says. Went from a 2-game suspension, then he extends it to a 10-game suspension on a second appeal by the NFL.
And these are photographs of Greg Hardy's female in
terrible. And then allegedly, after he had beat her, he had laid her on a bed full of loaded semi-automatic rifles and told her if she went to the police, he'd kill her. Jeez. That kind of behavior doesn't ever become, 1, acceptable, and 2, reversible. Who's to say that he's not the same guy he was before? And now you have him coming on your show, Dana White, and possibly fighting for a UFC contract. And yeah, it's going to be a big name for the fact of him being a former football player.
And he's officially been invited on the Tuesday night Contender series, right? Do we have a date?
Yeah, I think it's June 19th or something like that.
That's something I don't even want to promote. I'm really bummed about that.
And it's like, how do you... I'm sorry. I understand people change, and he could be a complete different guy he is.
Yeah.
Before, like, maybe he's changed and he's really, like, has paid for what had happened, and we don't know what he goes through his head every day. I'm not condoning anything he did, but who knows if he's a changed person. But at the end of the day, he still did what he did.
And he's fighting. That's the thing. It's not like he's going to go play golf. Mm-hmm. It's directly related to what he did. He smacked a bitch up. No offense. Yeah. Now he's going to go smack some dude up in a ring. He's going to do the same thing. Just now you're going to get paid money for it, and we're all supposed to watch and fucking clap for you.
Yeah,
that's a hard sell, man.
It's a hard sell for sure.
I'm not down with it.
No,
fuck Greg Hardy.
Not at all. I can't condone anything, and unfortunately, we could be wrong about Nick Diaz. Maybe someone tried to kill him. Like,
we don't know the details.
We don't know the details yet.
It's a bad.
But at the end of the day, it's a bad look, and you can't do shit like that.
No,
it's not okay.
It's not, especially.
It's never gonna be okay either. It's fucking terrible. So on to a much lighter note, though. Recently, Joe Rogan had George St. Pierre on his podcast, and straight from the mouth of the man, he said he wants to fight the winner of Khabib and Conor at 155.
At 155
What do you think of that?
I thought GSP was looking kind of small on that podcast.
I didn't watch the video, but I heard the audio.
His arms definitely looked smaller. I mean, he's in his little
he seemed like
polo shirt thing, but he is, you know, he looked pretty scrawny. It was hard to tell.
But I'm telling you, man, that colitis probably could have put him down a little bit. He probably hasn't trained in it. Well, not that he hasn't trained. Probably hasn't trained at full tilt in a minute.
Yeah, he's eating a lot different, and he's doing intermittent fasting, which, if you don't know what that is, folks, it's your intermittent fasting is you're eating within a 10-hour window, and that's it. So then it makes your metabolism. If you eat at noon, fast. You can eat until 10 p.m., but then that's it. You don't eat nothing else until noon the next day.
It's kind of smart though. It's kind of eat till you're full, but then don't eat until you're starving.
And it gives your digestive system a chance to clear out. Mm-hmm. And then technically, supposedly, especially if you combine it with a keto diet, you burn fat while you're sleeping.
Well, and it's supposed to speed up your metabolism, supposedly also. Which, honestly, just from, like, wrestling back in the day, like, it's very similar, like, when you're cutting weight, you're kind of doing intermittent fasting because, like, and not necessarily, like, that's what the plan was, but when you think about it, I used to only eat meals. I only used to eat breakfast and dinner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd eat a small breakfast, like, only protein so it would burn off fat during the day.
Right.
And then I'd eat, like, a small dinner, like a chicken breast and something like that. And then sometimes I would skip, like, I'd eat in intervals, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's smart because, like, when you eat, it's so satisfying. But then when you're not eating, it's so miserable. You know what I mean? It's like, it's tough.
Well, he seemed pretty confident that he could get down to 155.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's got Lockhart behind him too, doesn't he?
He does. And here's the question: like, when he says he's going to get down to 155, I don't think he's just going to cut. He's going to lose muscle.
Oh no,
mass.
yeah, no.
He's going to do like Hector Lombard.
He's going to do it the right way.
Yeah, so he's going to be a smaller man. He's going to lose muscle mass, which means he's going to lose power. Now, he's not known for being a powerful guy anyway, so does that matter?
I don't necessarily think that he will lose that much power.
He could gain potential speed as well.
That's what I'm saying. I think that his overall game and how he strikes, he doesn't really need... It's so technical. You know what I mean?
He's got that Freddie Roach boxing.
He's got the
fast ass. One of the few fighters that you.
He probably has the greatest jab. He's probably got the greatest jab in MMA history, honestly.
And he'll double that shit up, which sounds like a minor thing, but
it changes a game when you're
a double jab. Well,
think about all the guys he
nobody
fought.
Does it.
Think about all the guys he fought back in the day, like Fitch, like Hughes, Penn, all these different guys. Yeah, Koscheck, who are all wrestlers. Even Thiago Alves, even guys like that who are just like they were very explosive. It's hard to be explosive when you got a hand in your face.
nonstop.
You know,
yep.
he's just popping that
And he hasn't
double
lost a
jab,
step.
popping that double jab, popping it, and you take a shot. Boom, you're on your ass. You pop a double jab. You want to hit an explosive overhand? Oh, double jab's gonna stop you from getting all the way over. You know what I mean? He's very technical. It's great technical boxing mixed with extremely high level grappling.
And he's talking about something that could be as much as a year away, so he has plenty of time to continue to lose weight.
You know what's so funny about this though? Is everyone knows that Conor McGregor's the biggest star pretty much ever in the UFC. But I feel like this headline, his GSP has like gotten a whole lot more talk towards his way when talking about if he's going to fight Khabib or Conor than everyone saying, oh, Conor would just demolish Khabib and then he'll just go whoop GSP's ass.
Yeah, because GSP's
You know what
the
I mean?
one saying it. Yeah.
Because GSP's the one that like, yeah, let's do it. It's kind of smart in his like mental game if he has to fight Conor too. Well, he'll just go like, man, you know, I mean, GSP's not the guy who gotta talk shit, but he's gonna have to just at least say something back if Conor's gonna fucking eat him alive in
You can imagine
press
they do
conferences.
this.
But
They
he can be like, I wanted you before you wanted to fight me.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one asking for your name at the end of the day, you know?
How beautiful would it be to see Conor come back, fight Khabib, say in November?
Well, he
say
said
he
that
wins that fight.
Well,
then,
you saw that, right? The Dana White said that he spoke to him
Yeah.
over the weekend and said he's ready to come back and he wants to fight Khabib.
They're just waiting to see what happens next month in
Yep.
court.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which I don't think anything's going to happen. I think it's going to be a real, like, now that the UFC and him are on the same level, they're going to get behind him and try to get him out of there, even though it ruined their event. And they've completely damned him as a person. But at the end of the day, they're still his biggest star and they want to see him fight. So watch. And even though before they were so, he's going to have to deal with that himself. Watch. Now, I bet you some of their guys are going to get behind him and be like, hey, you know, we're not pressing charges. Maybe the guys who are the fighters, yeah, pay them off. You know, like, there's going to be a kind of a shift of, like, the persona that they, like, perceived a month ago to what they're going to after they just had this meeting.
did you hear Carolina say she got a letter from Conor and she wasn't going to sue him?
No way.
Yeah, she got a letter and he was very apologetic and she was like, I've seen worse in Poland. I wasn't even scared. She's like, I'm not going to sue for
Of course
anything.
she's not, dude. She's a badass.
She's a bad chick. I like
Dude,
it.
imagine all the shit they've seen just in those, like, low-level, like, kickboxing tournaments and shit. Crazy-ass
It
motherfuckers.
was funny. Ariel asked her in the interview, he's like, were you scared on the bus? She was like,
No.
I'm not scared. I'm from Poland. Oh, but okay, GSP, man. 155. Conor, they could do Conor versus GSP coming up right in the summer after that because you know they'd want to do a 6-month build-up because they want to throw in a tour.
Well, here's my prediction. Next year, it's going to be a long time, but I think Conor's not fighting until November.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think November, MSG is Conor versus Khabib. Then, I think the winner is going to fight GSP July at Fight Week.
That's what I was thinking too.
Just
They'll
because
stretch that out till then.
Yeah, just
which
stretch
is like
it out to then.
7 months
That gives-
after, or roughly.
And that gives GSP plenty of time to make 55. That gives GSP plenty of time to cool down on his, what's going on with his body. And it gives time for Conor to get to train and get back in shape. It gives Khabib time for Ramadan and everything. And I think it just makes sense for everybody at that point.
Speaking of Ramadan, I got a question for you that I can't get out of my head. It's been driving me nuts lately, Paul. Ramadan, Khabib, Conor. The UFC sat there and told us that Conor McGregor wasn't going to want to fight until September, October, and they didn't want to wait that long. So they're going to strip him, and we're going to get a new champion. And now it's fucking Khabib, right? And then Khabib turns around and immediately says, yeah, I can't fight till, what? November. So what changed except, now we have the belt to this guy, but he's not fighting until November either, by the way. Are we not in the same situation with just a different name now?
No, because there's so many fights that need to happen in that division before there can be a title fight that I think it kind of makes sense.
You think this made sense?
Although this whole lightweight division in the last year has been a clusterfuck, I think finally it's all starting to unravel and make sense.
Interesting.
Because now you have the Alvarez Poirier 2. We kind of have an idea of where Kevin Lee's going, like from here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all starting to make sense. I mean, it sucks they dropped they're dropping like strange like rankings and shit and like different fighters that shouldn't be in there, but I still think the fights are gonna happen, you know?
Rankings.
Yeah, they're trash.
Well, who do you like in GSP? Let's say GSP Conor is the fight, which I think that's the one we'd all hope for.
I think it's gonna be a rough night for Conor. Unless in the next year in GSP's size really makes him diminish.
Yeah, that's a considerably smaller man. From 170, cutting to 170
at a considerably
to
older age.
Yeah. Usually when people tend to get a little bit bigger,
I
the weight's a little harder
I hate to
get off.
make this comparison because greatest fighter of all time. Very similar to when Ali fought later in his career. And he was like just too small, dude. The heavyweights just kept getting bigger and bigger at that time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Who was it that he fought?
Yeah, he's not even
who did he
heavyweight by
lose
today's
to?
standards.
And he was like, kept saying he was the greatest of all time after he beat Ali. It was when Ali was looking rough.
Foreman.
Not Foreman.
No, Foreman was way bigger than Ali, too.
I think it was Foreman's like training partner.
Not Liston. Not,
No, this was late. Like
late,
this was after Ali went away for a
I've
little
been smoking
bit.
a lot of weed in the last 40 minutes or so.
Man.
And wasn't
This is gonna
expecting it.
bother me.
I mean, I got the info out there. We could go look it up. I don't know if we're going to stop just for that.
Huh?
We'll answer it on the next podcast.
No, I gotta look that shit up.
Look it up online right there.
Oh fuck. I gotta see.
Well, how about Khabib versus GSP while you're Googling that?
I think that's a strange fight. It's really gonna depend on how well Khabib can get to GSP.
Do that in Russia.
Because GSP will keep him at range with that jab all day. That's where it is. Where if Conor and GSP fought, Conor would have to put GSP away with like hard shots. GSP could probably take Conor down and probably have his way. But then Khabib is not going to have his way with GSP if he takes him down. And he fucking would just get kept at bay with just solid fucking jabs.
Right. Well, this would be interesting because by the time that fight comes around, you know, whoever it is, Khabib or GSP versus, Khabib or Conor versus GSP, it's going to wind up being in the ESPN era at that point.
Yeah.
You know, Conor's next fight will be irrelevant to the Fox deal because it's going to be a pay-per-view. But my point being that obviously that's going to be a pay-per-view as well with the GSP fight, but it's going to have that power of ESPN behind it, which is going to make it that much bigger, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be strange to really see what happens with the ESPN like trans over, you know, like it's really going to be like, I don't know.
Maybe we're going to see another surge for MMA because we need it. We've been on a downswing, you know, the past couple
little
years.
bit, but they're
been
still
down.
just great fights still.
We've had some great fights, luckily.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're a far cry from the heyday of Brock Lesnar and, you know, who we were talking about earlier, Chuck Liddell. Like, outside of Conor McGregor fights, which, let's be honest, the last Conor McGregor fight was November 2016.
Yeah.
By the time he rolls around again, if he fights November, it'll be 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if we're lucky, we're going to get that GSP fight out of him if he doesn't lose. And possibly somewhere down the line, maybe we'll get a third Diaz fight. But
I think everything's really put on hold with Diaz if he fights GSP. Like I don't think that Diaz fight really interests him that much as the GSP fight does.
no, I don't think it
Just
does
for
either.
the money.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't have much to prove in his mind.
Yeah.
In a third Diaz fight, it's just a paycheck. The GSP fight would definitely perk Conor's interest.
I think so too.
Thing is, you know, if he wins that title back, you know what's likely to happen? He's probably just going to wind up getting stripped again. Because he's what? Let's say he fights GSP. Let's say he wins.
Walks away probably. honestly.
He's probably going to retire at that point,
I
or
don't
just
think...
wait till he gets stripped again because he just doesn't fight.
So what's Conor now, like 28?
Yeah.
29?
29 with a kid and doesn't want to get any more head injuries. And he's also got at least one huge boxing match on the table somewhere. And he's just got
so much more options is the thing.
Right.
Is he doesn't need to fight anymore. Fighting was his way out, and now that he's out, he knows what to do with the money. He's one of those guys who's very like business savvy. Give him $1 million, he'll turn it into 5, you know. Although he's very flashy in his like approach, he's still very smart in his business deals, you know.
He's got his new clothing line coming out here soon too.
Yep.
August McGregor. His new line of fuck you ties I saw on Instagram the other day had me rolling.
It was pretty funny.
His fuck you suit was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Definitely some pimp shit.
I thought it was hilarious.
From Conor McGregor. He needs to get his ass back into MMA. Let's hope that everything works out with this court date next month, which I think it will. We talked about. He's a star. He's not just a fighter.
Larry Holmes.
That's
who the fuck I was talking about.
Bounce back to that.
Larry Holmes thought he was the fucking... He thought he was like the best. He fucking beat Ali on his way out. Larry Holmes that's like what made Larry Holmes fucking
he got
popular.
Absolutely, but karma got him. I mean, Tyson KO'd his ass on his way out. So,
but still, you know what I mean? He was talking all that shit about Ali at the end of his career. He's like, I beat the greatest of all time. I'm the greatest of all time. Larry Holmes wasn't shit, man. I mean, he was shit, but he was not the greatest of all time. I'll tell you that.
He wasn't beating no Ali in his prime, just like he wasn't beating no Tyson.
That fucking gave me so much release. Holy shit, dude.
I was driving you nuts for a second.
Oh my god.
You need to hit this bowl, man. Here. Load up this up. It needs a fresh bowl in there. Here, scoop some of that in there. We're winding down today's episode here. Man, we got big news on the line, or big news ahead, I think, on the horizon. We got ESPN stepping in. I think that's a relief. Because, I've been discouraged with the state of MMA, Paul, since this whole sale of the Fertitas to...
I think it's going to really, I think it's going to really put it out there and really, make it, generalized and, make it more of, an everyday sport.
I hope so, man. I love this sport.
I mean, I've seen some fucking weird shit with, Russian kids, fight when they're 12. I don't know if I really,
No, I'm not down with that
that's
either.
Cool, but still, I mean, it's still, something to be said that so many younger people are, starting to pick up so many different martial arts now.
No, I think that's great, and I want to do anything that we can to help promote martial arts, not just the UFC, but amateurs as well. I mean, it's one of the reasons we started this podcast, and we want to thank people for listening. We're not journalists. We're not trying to report the news to you. The truth is, I got tired of watching journalists only in this space. 100%. I like guys like Luke Thomas and Ariel Helwani and their shows, but listening to guys especially like Luke, he has to sit there on his show and say, I can't be a fan. I can't tell you who I'm rooting for in this fight. I have to remain impartial as a journalist. Okay, so that brings one point of view, and that's cool. But as a fan, I like to hear from other fucking fans too, man.
Yeah, 100%. I like the idea of in the same breath. Why can't you? Because so many people on ESPN and all that. Now that we're generalized on ESPN. Tons and tons and tons of people on ESPN give their honest opinion on who they believe is going to win the game. And when you have a panel now, you're not going to have, here's all these guys that know about fighting. Here's this guy who thinks Conor McGregor is going to win. Mm-hmm. Here's this guy who thinks GSP is going to win. Let them argue it out on First Take. Or let them argue it out on any of these different shows, or even SportsCenter, That's what SportsCenter really is at the end of the day. Or there's so many of these different shows. I think that's what's going to make the UFC so big, that you have these, First Take is going to start honestly reporting about fighting.
Right, not just an afterthought. We're going to get that bump, that ESPN love.
And it's going to bring some people in. And then also think about it there's so many of these different just argumental shows on ESPN where there's guys who take one side and guys who take another, and we're going to argue it out because we believe someone's going to win. It's not, these guys are great, they're both, which is great at the end of the day. I like knowing about fighters and them outside the cage, but what's so wrong with arguing your side that you believe a guy's better than another? And what's so wrong with thinking someone's better than someone else?
Right.
It's stupid.
Totally agree.
It's just dumb.
100%.
It just doesn't make any sense, bro. Like, what's so wrong with me thinking that if Tyron Woodley and Darren Till fought, that Darren Till would beat him? What is so wrong with that?
And what's wrong with saying, hey, I like Darren Till and I want him to win on top of that?
Exactly.
I agree. And that's why we're doing this, you know.
That's
and
like Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith will be like, yeah, me and LeBron, I love LeBron. He's my favorite guy in the world. The Cavs are going to fuck everyone up, you know? Like, or he can be like, yeah, I've known this guy for this long, and, you know, he's my best friend, so they're going to win. Like, he says shit like that all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, it's stupid, man.
And we want to hear from you, our listeners. You know, if you're watching on YouTube, give us your opinion in the comments below. If you're listening on iTunes, you can go to SWATMMA.com, and you can hit us up on the comments on the website if you like. Because we appreciate everybody that's listening. And we want to hear from you as well.
I want to hear your opinion as well. I mean, everyone's got their opinion, whether it's bad, good, or ugly. I mean, let's hear it.
We're going to do our best to bring interesting content to our upcoming shows. We're working on getting some not really interviews with fighters, but more conversations. Like, we're not trying to break news here, but we want to sit down and have conversations. Obviously,
I want to see the side that everyone else doesn't see.
Right, and we're going to sit down and smoke some weed, and we're going to talk to fighters about that. We're going to talk to pros. We're going to talk to amateurs. We've got friends in the fight game here. Fight Week, International Fight Week's coming up. We're already going to events then. We're just looking to bring us a different kind of flavor.
We are actually going to the Ultimate Fighter.
Yep. Tickets secured here just this weekend. And we're going to look to bring some cool content as much as we can from there. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening today.
Hell yeah.
Keep on smoking this herb here.
Thank you, guys. Go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, everything.
Absolutely. It's SWATMMA.com. And hey, since we're coming here live from Las Vegas, we want to give a shout out to the Las Vegas Golden Knights here tonight for game one of the Stanley Cup Finals. Go Knights.
Go Knights.
Peace.
All right, later, guys.